My guest this morning is Marc with a C, Polite. Marc W. Polite is an author, award-winning writer, and the founder of Polite on Society. He's the author of 5 books: Poetic Ruminations of Mr. Born Nice, Everything to Learn, Nothing to Teach, Poetic Ruminations Volume 2, The Binge Watcher's Guide to Black Mirror, and Quiet with a Loud Mind. Born and raised in Harlem, New York, Marc is a poet and essayist. He writes about social issues, labor, film, technology, and literature. His reviews and commentary have been featured in Poets and Writers, Black Star News, Madame Noire, the Amsterdam News, the Grio, Time Magazine, and Harlem World Magazine. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Reading Circle microphone. None other than Marc with a C, Polite. Marc, good morning.
Good morning, Marc.
Man, it's so good to have you here. Listening audience, you know, several of my guests since September has come about because of my meeting them at the Harlem Book Fair, and Marc is one of them. I met him again through Eartha, and immediately as I was passing out my card and meeting people, I was letting them know that I had a radio show where I interview authors and invited them to be a guest on the show. And many of them, as you know, took me up on my offer, and Marc is one of them. So, Marc, good morning again to you. Like I said, my first question generally is kind of like, and especially as a man, not that males don't, because we do, but where did this all begin in terms of writing, and were you an avid reader, or, you know, where did this whole language arts thing begin for you?
That's a good question to start us off, Marc. So to talk about the origins of it, you know, a lot of my experience in writing, it comes from like academia, because I put down writing for a while because, you know, I used to like write stories like way back in the day, like when I was like maybe junior high school. But when I went to like college, and I kind of put it down. And I just said, you know, let me focus on getting a degree. Let me focus on, you know, getting my education. And my whole thing was I wasn't intentionally meant out to be a writer, but somewhere in the course of me going to grad school and finishing up, I started to get the idea of, you know, maybe I should continue this on my own. So, so one thing that did come from me going to grad school was me picking writing back up and say, you know, let me do this on the outside. And it was a few years after I finished grad school that I decided to start a blog. And the blog, as you cited, is PoliteOnSociety.com. And it's been started in 2009. I graduated in 2008, started the blog in 2009, right? And from there on out, like I, you know, started to build an audience. And then from me growing my blog audience, right, I decided to make the jump from, well, if I can hold down a blog for so many years, then I can take that same energy and take that same know-how and expertise and publish a book. And that's what I decided to do. So I went from writing my own blog and running the blog and being the founder of a blog to self-publishing my own work. So that's kind of the origins of how I got started.
So when you were in elementary, middle, and high school, were you writing then?
No, I mean, kind of off and on. I would kind of like, how do I put this? It would kind of be a hobby per se.
Okay.
Like, you know, I used to like, you know, write short stories, but only didn't show them to anybody. I used to, you know, write essays, but didn't show them to anybody. And I just kind of like said, okay, let me not try to do this for real. I'll just focus on just getting through school, just getting the education and doing what I need to do to just get through school. But it you know, it wasn't until grad school that I realized that, wait a minute, this is what I would like to do. Because I always chose fields that I would have to write, like to kind of, you know, go in a cycle. I was a political science major in undergrad, and then I was a history major in grad school. And both of those disciplines require you to write. Well, political science is social science, and you know, of course, histories, humanities, and both of those are very writing reliant. You have to do a lot of writing, a lot of reading, a lot of defending, and a lot of making your case and a lot of research. So even though I put it down, I always gravitated towards subject that would make me have to write. So I decided to pick, let me just stop playing around and picking back up. So that's kind of how it went.
So, all right, this is the reason. There's a method to my madness, and there's a reason for my questions. And the listening audience know that whenever I'm not doing radio, my day job is a school principal, and so I deal with kids on a daily basis. Matter of fact, my school is an all-boys school, and so that's why I'm asking the questions I'm asking in terms of reading and writing, because I know in some respects the challenges I have in getting them to do that. And so what I'm trying to get a feel for is, were you a male child, an African-American male child at that, who was interested in reading and writing at an early age?
Well, I mean, to answer your question, Mark, I was. I went to and speaking, it's funny you mentioned your history, being a teacher in an all-male school. I actually attended an all-male school. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Unfortunately, school is closed now, but I used to attend a school called Rice High School. It used to be on 124th Street and Lenox Avenue. It was an all-male Catholic high school.
Okay.
Yeah, and we did a lot of reading in there. Like it was heavy on that. We read so many different books. We read things like Paradise Lost. We read 1984. Confederacy of Dunces, like a lot of classic books, Brave New World, like a lot of classic books, whether it's Shakespeare or the poetry of Robert Frost, Chaucer, William Butler Yeats. A lot of that stuff I got in the English classes that was focused in high school. So,
right.
Yeah, so I got a lot of that. So it kind of prepared me to kind of keep going. So that's kind of my answer for when it comes to high school. Okay.
So you felt like, all right, it's kind of like a hobby for me, but then within your majors, you had to do a lot of writing, and you felt like, what, maybe there is more to this writing thing than I'm, putting here into place or that I think it is. And so now you decide to pick it back up. Now, your books are, at least a couple of them, are poetry books.
Yes.
What led you to that? Because it's one thing to write a paper for your history major. It's another thing to write a paper for your political science major. But then there's yet another thing to be writing poetry.
Right. That's a good point. I guess what got me started with writing poetry, there was some things that I wanted to get out that I couldn't get out any other way. I mean, you can always write an essay about your experiences, but to write a poem is to express your feeling and share with other people, right? And I could do that in an essay format, but it sometimes doesn't really work. It doesn't crystallize the moment and it crystallize the experience for people. But I got the idea to start to write my own poetry because I just wanted to get into the field and just have my work out there. I actually started going to open mics,
right,
and starting building the rapport. And I've got to shout them out. They were pivotal in starting my writing career. I used to go to what used to be called the Open Mic Smoothie Night at the Uptown Bookstore in Harlem on 156th Street and Amsterdam Avenue, and they used to have a monthly open mic, right? And, it was open to anybody, whether you were a newbie, established, or somewhere in the middle, right? It wasn't anything elitist. So after working through my nerves, working up the nerves to actually recite something in front of people and getting responses and saying, oh, Mark, what you have to say is, it's really on point. It's really important. It's really good. After a few years of kind of workshopping my stuff on the open mics, at the bookstore, with the encouragement of the owner, Jennifer Wilson. She was the one who actually encouraged me to start to publish my own works. And with her encouragement and others, I had the idea to get into self-publishing, and that's exactly what I did. As far as, how I started, some of the articles some of the places you mentioned that I wrote for, I was actually able to take some of the money from the freelance articles that I've published to put towards publishing the book. So that's kind of how that got started. So that's the origin of, the jump and how I got into poetry and how I launched my first work.
So when you were talking about poetry is like expressive, did you or do you keep a journal? Is that where you were writing your poems in, or, kind of where were they coming from? What was the inspiration behind them? Because you're saying your poetry is a wonderful way to express yourself, but where did they come from? Is this something like, feelings you'd already put down in a journal, or is it something that came on the spot, or just something you observed and felt like writing about it? Talk a little bit about, where does your poems come from?
Well, I would say that my poems come from my personal experiences, some of them, and it just comes from me wrestling with the realities of that, and kind of just getting into the meaning of it, because the way I look at it is, if I had to like rank what kind of started me off, I would say it's the encouragement to do it, right? But also it was to push through the barriers that I saw for myself. I was like, wait, why should I talk? Why should I have this to say? Who the whole idea that you have to be somebody in order to say anything in this world, that you have to like have a title or a rank, or you have to have like 1,000 alphabets behind your name in order to have anybody say, give any credence to what you're saying. And, what I did was push past that. And so, to get through and talk about my messages, one of the things you'll see if you read my work, is that I get into rebuilding a person's self-esteem, after you've had personal setbacks, and doing what you need to do to get that out. Because, one of the things personally, I kind of believe that if you don't deal with the inner self, right, you can't do anything outside. It's gonna hamper you from doing anything in your life. Like, you won't be able to go up and get up and speak at a conference if you don't believe that you're worthy, right? You won't take the opportunity to go to do a keynote speaker, event. You won't take the opportunity to say, can you show up at this library, event? If you don't believe that you're capable of doing it, then you'll shrink from the opportunity. So, one of the things I had to do was clear the weeds, proverbially, so to speak. And that's what a lot of my initial writings were about.
So again, you said something that I said not long ago. Matter of fact, within this hour. Matter of fact, I played Michael Jackson's Man in the Mirror, because you're absolutely right. And I've been doing a lot of reading and working in that area of late, especially myself, in terms of you have to have you together before you can go out trying to get anybody else together. And so in terms of, like you said, in terms of, and something that you said too, in terms of a whole bunch of letters behind your name. And so for what I'm hearing from that is everyone ought to have voice, regardless of if you got letters behind your name or not. Everybody is entitled to voice. And one of the things poetry and spoken word does is give folks an opportunity to express themselves. So now the listening audience, do you have your books anywhere near you, or any of your poems near you? If not,
yes, I do.
Good. So, at some point before the hour is out, I'm going to actually have you read whatever's one of your favorites or whatever. I'm going to actually have you read it. And we know we don't clap to spoken word. We snap our fingers. We snap fingers at an open word. So whenever you read that, I'll be snapping my fingers here in the studio. But you're absolutely right in terms of self-reflection, in terms of working on self. Because a lot of people, Mark, as you probably know, a lot of people do not hold themselves accountable for anything. It's always somebody else. And again, I work with kids every day. So when they get to my office and I say, why'd you do that? The first word out their mouth is he. Like, no, wait. What do you mean he? Like whatever they did was always attributed to he. And so I always tell them, listen, you need to stop. I need to understand your part in it. What did you do? I don't want to hear about what he did. I want to know what did you do. So you're right. A lot of, as we're trying to make change, and I said this right before I put on Man in the Mirror, we have to look in that mirror and change ourselves, and then we can begin to change others. So poetry allows you to do that. Now, again, I'm asking these questions because I mean, this is my 23rd year on the air, and I've had a bunch of poetry folks, and I've had a bunch of novelists, and I've had documentary people. It spanned the gamut over 23 years. So in terms of now, because poetry books generally are some of the hardest books to market and sell, how has it been in terms of getting your work out there?
That's a great question, and you've hit on it, Mark. There, I will say that poetry is definitely niche. You know, it's very targeted and focused. Like, some people are really into it, and a lot of folks don't care about it. So, the thing is, how I've been able to do it is, I have to seek out my audience. I have to find an audience who is really into poetry, and then, of course, that means going to open mic events. That means going to, going to book festivals and other kinds of literary events to find people who are really into that. So now, in terms of finding my audience and getting the work out, I would say, it does have its challenges because, like, folks don't really blow up with poetry like that. It's not like being a hip hop or R&B artist. People is not checking for you on that level like that. But, I will say that, the niches of support that I was able to find, and be able to find the groove and be able to, who I was able to actually work with have been, very supportive. Like, I don't have any illusions that I'm going to go through the stratosphere. I'm very realistic, so about that. But I'm grateful for everyone who does support me, and I'm very grateful for people who have bought my books and continue to listen to my works and continue to be out there and everything. Continue to check for me. Sometimes it's about cultivating the audience that you do have, rather than coveting the one that you don't. And I think that's one thing that a lot of artists have to, be mindful of, is that, you can't always be envious of what the next person has in terms of where they're at in the game and, that kind of thing. So, like, I'm grateful for the audience that I have. I'm still finding it. I'm still finding those in the ones and twos who want to hear, positive affirmations and, mixed with observations about the world, which is kind of what my work is about. Like, I don't slam anybody. It's about affirmations. I don't disrespect any group of people. My work is about positivity and, rebuilding self-esteem. So, and sometimes searching for that audience can be challenging because, unfortunately, the negativity draws a bigger crowd. The ratchetness draws a bigger crowd. But, that's not what I'm about. That's not what my work is about. So, I'm still, finding my audience in the ones and twos where I can. So,
no, that's absolutely that. Matter of fact, for a lot of us who are artists, a lot of the work that we put out there, we kind of go into it knowing we're not going to be like this multi-billionaire or this Michael Jackson or Prince or whomever. But we do it for the passion of it and the love of it. And again, just having some voice. I mean, many of us are never going to be like, Stephen King or any of those, I'm trying to think of some of those other folks that made zillions being an author. But at the same time, it does give us an opportunity to get our work out there. See, again, for me, I have 2 musical CDs. One I put out in 2011, one I put out in 2013. Have made not a dime on them, but just the fact that I have music out there. It's on iTunes, it's on Apple Music, it's on other platforms, so it's on Pandora. So just the fact that it's out there a lot of times is satisfaction enough. And it, again, it's a creative outlet. It gives us an opportunity to get our creativity out and share it with the world. And there is something about sharing our thoughts and energy into the world. And you're right about the positivity. And you're absolutely right in terms of the audience, in terms of what, you go to where poetry people are. So if it's spoken word, that's where we go. If it's some other event, that's where we go. So absolutely right. I remember years ago when I first started the show, I was a few years in, I had some brothers who wrote poetry on the show. And one of the questions I asked them, and most of the time I ask this, especially to my male poets, is, don't you think people will see you as writing poetry as soft? Don't you think they'll see that? And so when I asked the brother that question, he said, brother, let me tell you something. He said, if you can write poetry, you will have all the women you want. You will have all the this, that, and the other, everything. He says, if you can write poetry, and I said, that's a good point. So how has been the reaction to, you as an African-American male writing poetry?
That's, wow. I hadn't thought about that angle. Now, in terms of the reaction to my work, I would say that, how can I put this? What I get a lot is that, my work is introspective and thoughtful, and a lot of things, I guess a lot of people don't, I don't know, for whatever reason, a lot of people don't they don't understand how the gears turn in our minds.
Right.
About how we process the world. Because, men, and then I'm going to say especially black men, have to process the world a little bit differently than everybody else. We have to move through the world in a very different way than a lot of other people.
Correct.
I'm not bashing nobody. I'm just saying, like, as a black man, like, we have to move through the world with caution and care. Even something as minor as, not being like a physically imposing threat to somebody. And, we just have to move through the world in a very different fashion. And to kind of put people at ease around us so they won't feel so threatened and everything. And that's just part of it. But when it comes to what goes down on the paper, a lot of what I come across is that, I didn't, people didn't surmise that I could be so introspective, about things. Like, one thing that I'll share is that, I have a poem that there's an element of a poem where I talk about how colorism has affected me. And there's an actual essay in one of my books where I talk about that. And, people are not looking at me on the radio, of course, but like, if you go on my site, look at my picture, I'm a dark skinned brother. Right. So one thing that, I've had to deal with is, growing up in a certain way. And remember being, in elementary, people making comments and everything about, skin color, cracking jokes and everything. And, I had to kind of write my way through that. So, and people don't really make an accounting of the internal world of black men. Like, they just think that the strength that we project on the outside that's just it. But, we, to a certain extent, we do have to project strength to not be considered soft, because you want to be able to walk down the block. You don't want somebody trying you just walking down the street. No one wants that. But to a certain extent, it's kind of unfortunate that people don't take accounting for the ways we have to comport ourselves, the ways in which we have to navigate through the world and not, be seen as a threat. And people don't see us for our minds. They see us as just brutes in bodies, and a walking threat until otherwise confirmed to not be true. So that's kind of what I've kind of dealt with,
No, and you're absolutely right. See, that's all the more reason why I love this discussion, because one, men in general, and then I'll get into black men, but we do have feelings. Now, there are a lot of people that based on stereotypes, based on sociology and social and so forth and so on, a lot of people overlook that or either think that's not true. But the truth of the matter is men have feelings too. Black men have feelings too. And so the fact that you can write them down and get them out, or like you said, the experiences you had, rather than bottle them up, you got them out and put it on paper, because many of my authors throughout the year shared with me how cathartic writing is. In other words, it was a path to their healing to be able to write, get it out, and, in some respects, share their experiences with other people. Now, the flip side of that is people will now read your work and say, oh, my God, I thought I was the only one. I didn't know somebody else felt the same way I felt. And they don't get that until they read what you've written.
That's so true. That's one thing that I've had people say to me, like, oh my gosh, like, you've had this happen to you too. And I say to people, like, yes, I've had it happen to me too. Like, I've been called all kinds of things, like, one of my hobbies is I'm a fan of science fiction, right? And I've been into it since I was like maybe 9, 10, right? And like, I remember when it was a thing for people to get clowned for being in science fiction. Oh, you Star Trek nerd. I remember it was a thing, and like, I kind of like wrote about, being a black nerd and what that meant. And, not in those exact words, but like how people kind of buck against intelligence, and they kind of think that, oh, you're just a brain. You don't have a heart. Like, they'll say things to kind of like let you know that, oh, you know what? I don't like this guy, but I want to study with him. I don't really want to hang out with him, but oh yeah, you come to study group. Help us out, but I don't want to be around you. So and I kind of talk about those things and kind of hint at them, and it's funny how I come across people who've experienced the same thing, and one of the best things about, like you said, about having a way of getting it out is I can talk about it, write it, and release it, and not let it embitter me. Because if you don't deal with it, it can make you bitter, and then that can be dangerous.
Yes, it can. Yes, it can. And that's why I was emphasizing that point a couple of minutes ago, but we have an opportunity to release. We have an opportunity because a lot of people will hold whatever they're feeling in. And then ultimately, before you know it, they got a nervous or a mental breakdown. Or they're running around here angry and they take it out on somebody else. So at least whenever you get it down on paper, you get a chance to release it. As a matter of fact, I'm looking at the title here of the book, Poetic Ruminations of Mr. Born Nice. Talk to me a little bit about, because again, I have 23 tracks. Okay. Each one of them, the title means something. So I know when folks name books and songs, there's a meaning behind it. Yeah. So talk to me about Poetic Ruminations of Mr. Born Nice. Oh,
okay. So, I mean, there's a reason that I started off that my first book is that title, right? Because, I mean, of course, the subject is poetry, right? And it's my thoughts. And, Mr. Born Nice is a play on my name. My last name is Polite, right?
Right.
And, it's something that one thing that I've gotten a lot in my life ever since I was like maybe 5, 6, when I started going to school, was that, Mark, Mr. Polite, are you polite? And it's kind of like a running joke.
Correct.
It hit me with my whole life, and I'm like, oh my God, I get tired. How you get tired of people saying stuff?
That's right. That's right. And believe it or not, I was going to ask you about that because like my last name is Medley. And I used to get this, I get a couple of things. One, I get either confused with melody because I'm a musician, or medley with people who actually know the meaning of it. And so, I know exactly what you mean. You got it even more than I did because more people know the definition of polite than they do medley. So I know you got it more than I did. But talk about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the thing. So it's kind of, my thing is that it was kind of a way of me flipping it around. Like, it was at one point, I'm like, I got tired of people making name jokes about my name. I'm just like, and trying to put me in my place by saying, oh, you better be polite, this, that, and thing. Oh, you got to be nice. No matter how people treat me, right? I had to be, or I would get a variation. Do you live up to your name? And I'm just like, you're going to ask me, do I live up to my name after you just said something wild greasy to me, right? I'm like, really? You going to pull that word? That's what we doing? I'm like, and I'm just like, I had to find a way to flip that around, right? Because, I'm like, you know what? I used the name of my site, and Born Nice, right, is, polite. That's the way I look at it, Born Nice. But in a way, I flipped it because to me, Born Nice means that I was born to be good with the pen. I was born nice. Maybe people used to say back in the days, yo, son, he's nice on the mic, or he's nice with his words, or he's nice, or he's nice and bald. Yeah, I'm an 80s guy. Yeah, I grew up in that era. So, but that was, then people say, oh, yo, he was nice on the mic. He's nice, so Born Nice. That's kind of where that comes from. And that's kind of how I flipped it because, I got it from all different directions, and people would like to mispronounce the name, polite. I'm like, no, it's polite like the word. It's say it how it's spelled. And people don't understand. Like it's funny because people don't understand how crazy it is to be a Black American with a French sounding last name. And people don't get it. But I've kind of used it to my advantage in a way. It's actually helped me with my name recognition. Like, I know this guy,
No, you're absolutely right. We had earlier, matter of fact, no, let me see. I met Josue at another conference, but a few weeks ago, about a month ago, 2 months ago, I had a young man from Haiti, and his name was Josue Falaise. Mm-hmm. But the way it's spelled, people would have trouble kind of figuring out what it is. But he would always say, the Falaise is French. To your point of what you were just saying, and I told you my questions are made up based on your responses. It's something that you just said that gave me my question in terms of the power of words, because people do. I have seen and I know people who have lived up. Matter of fact, I'm one who've lived up to the last name. Like that's why words are extremely powerful, and the words that we hear the most are our names. Now, our first name, Marc, means warrior. Mm-hmm. That's what Marc means, warrior. And so my total name is Marc Allen Medley. Whenever you look up or if you research, what the names mean, the Marc, like I said, is warrior. Allen means handsome. Medley means a combination of many things. So if I have to define my name, I'm straight up. Well, I'm a handsome warrior who can do many things. And so, but I have known people whose last name is doctor who've become doctors. I've known people whose first name is Art or Arthur who've become art dealers. I've known people who, whatever their name is, they have become. So there is something to that. And we hear our names so much that we do actually, in some respects, become what our names are. So I can get the question, but I also understand, like you said, people, it can be annoying in terms of, the whole thing about polite or being, as a child, did they tease you as a child, the last name Polite?
Oh, yes. Oh, my God. What? Did I get teased? Oh, my. I'm like, don't let me do something wrong. Don't let me, oh, my God. Like, there was one time where I got detention and I did something I wasn't supposed to be doing, right? And got detention. I'm like, and then the teacher was like, Polite, you're here? What are you doing here? So it's just like, I got it from all directions. Like whether it's, kids that deal with, the teachers, the staff and everything. Even people when I'm just coming in, checking in or somewhere,
right.
Like I get it everywhere.
Right.
So it's like,
right. Yeah. So that's right. Yeah, you're right. When we have to do last name first, you would be Polite Marc.
Yeah.
That's right.
So I mean, it's like I could almost write just a chapter just on name jokes. I really could, but oh goodness.
So okay, so I get it. So all right, so that's where that title comes. Poetic Ruminations of Mr. Born Nice. I like that. Everything to learn, nothing to teach. Poetic Ruminations. What's that one about?
Yeah, I would say so. That title, Everything to Learn, Nothing to Teach, it kind of gets into my post-college struggle, right? And it was a period of my life where I was like, okay, I am finished school, got my brandly newly minted master's degree, right? And then the economy crashed. So at that point, I was like, okay, right, I got this fancy degree. Now this happened. The reality has changed around me. You know how you can go to school for one thing, and then when you get out, it's not necessarily viable, right? And my whole thing was that I've done this. What do I do now? And the idea of the purpose, the title of the book, Everything and Nothing to Teach, is kind of me playing on the idea that I've learned so much, right? That I've gone through school. I've gone through the whole track of school. I mean, I think I took maybe a year off between college and grad school.
Right.
For the most part, I went straight through. So like my whole college career, except for 1 year, was been straight through. So, I've had a lot of book learning, and then, when you're learning, the whole thing is just kind of be quiet, and then say you don't know anything.
Right.
It's just like sit down.
That's right. That's right.
So it's just like, so I kind of struggle with that. Like, wait a minute, like how you telling me I don't know anything, and I went through like so many years and years of school. I'm like, and then me, this book is my way of saying like, well, no, I'm not like completely bereft of knowledge altogether. I do know something,
right?
And this book is a collection of essays talking about, how I'm using my knowledge, right, to start analyzing the world, right, to start making sense of the world around me, especially the post-2008 world, and the realities of, the Great Recession, and just talking about, what had to line up or what didn't line up, and how you had to reshift your plans,
Right.
And so that's kind of the origin of that and why I named the book that.
All right, so I'm still staying with your bio. I see here that you write about social issues, labor, film, technology, and literature. Now, I have a blog, and I haven't written to it in a while. It's called The Critical Thinker. And I always tell folks when I describe my blog, it's kind of like the Jerry Seinfeld show. It's kind of like Seinfeld, where he says it's a show about nothing. My blog is kind of that, but it's based on observations that I make that I think people generally overlook. So something that I might notice and observe, that's what I'll write about. With the thinking, this is probably something people do not look at or observe, and I want to bring it to their attention. So talk to me a little bit about what is the thinking whenever you're writing about social issues, labor, film, technology, and literature.
So, I mean, that's the thing. So, I believe in critical thinking. And I think it's important to look and understand the world around us, because some people can take what's given to you, but if you do that, you won't understand. If you just say, for example, you take a newscast, right, and you take it for face value, right?
Right.
Because most newscasts are just about in the moment. It's a 1 minute and a half segment, right, about a topic, but they don't go deep. They don't go in depth, and you need context. They'll tell you about, oh, well, this strike happened, right? Oh, these workers went on strike. And, if you just limit yourself to that 90-second segment, then you'll just think, oh, it's a bunch of, greedy workers going on strike because they just want, to drive bigger Escalades, bigger cars. But when you look at the thing and say, wait a minute, these group of workers have been working without a raise for a decade.
Right.
And then you have to go back context. Like, wait a minute, they've been working for this long without any increases, but yet nobody has anything to say with that. But then when they go on strike, then it's a problem, right? Then that's the origin of the articles, bashing these group of workers, right?
Right.
And so my writing is to kind of point out the kind of hypocrisy of just looking at things at the surface level, because you're never going to understand everything if you just look at what the the inciting situation was. You have to go back years to understand, well, why did this happen? Why did this play out the way this did? It's cause and effect,
That's right.
And people don't want to realize, people don't want to deal with that, but you can't have things happen things stay unjust for so long and then expect no response, and that's what, to me, critical thinking means. It's just looking at things objectively and realizing that, there's consequences for years of neglect.
Correct.
There's consequences for that.
Correct. No, you're absolutely right. I cannot agree with you more. So do you have your book somewhere near you, or one of the books or anything? Or
Yeah.
and this is another question I ask a lot, especially for people who are either musicians or either poets or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Of all of your work, do you have a favorite? Because I know how I answer that question when people ask me that, and I usually give a response. Interestingly enough, when I met you, we were over there at Adam Clayton Powell in front of that building. My response is based on a statement that was in a movie about Adam Clayton Powell, and they asked him, what was your favorite piece of legislation? And so his response was kind of like, I don't know how you can ask me that. He said that would be like asking me which one of my kids are my favorite. Like, I love them all. It's like, I love all of them. So I don't really have a favorite per se, but I love them all. But I generally do ask that question, like, do you have a favorite? And your response might be the same as Adam's. I don't know.
That's the thing. That's so hard, because I really, that's the thing. It's different for different audiences. I don't know what resonates with people more, but I don't really, that's the thing. My books have purpose, right?
Right.
And so everything I put out in the world, right, has to have a purpose. Like, I don't just write just to be writing. I don't do that. I don't publish just to be publishing. So my books have different purposes, and, I don't know if I can really even do that, pick one, but
I understand, because I'm the same way.
I don't know if I could pick, because all my books have different purposes. Like, my poetry has different purposes than my essay collections. If I'm writing about AI,
right,
and writing about a TV show, that purpose is different than for me to write a poem. If I'm writing about the economy, that purpose of that essay is different than me to write about my upbringing in Harlem.
Right.
So, I don't have a way. I've got so much material. If I had maybe one or two books, maybe I could say, but with five, I can't really say which one is my favorite, because they all have different purposes. So, I don't know if that was the answer you were looking for.
No, because see, to me, I get a kick out of asking that question, because like I said, when I watched the movie, when they asked him, well, what do you think was your favorite piece of legislation? And his response, I said, I know exactly what he's saying, because whenever it's almost like we've birthed them, whatever it is, whether it's music, whether it's writing, whether it's whatever, you've given birth to it. So anybody, I don't know if you have kids or not, but I do. You don't want to have favorite, because favoritism causes a big issue with kids. So, even at my school, I cannot say this child is my favorite over the other ones that I have, because it will cause issues. So that response that Adam gave, I can relate to. And so the fact that you've given something similar, I totally relate to that. So have you had a chance to pick something you wanted to read?
Yes.
All right. I'm going to turn the mic off and you read it. And then when you're done, I'm going to do the finger snaps.
Okay. All right. So this poem comes from Poetic Ruminations, Volume 2. And it's called When the Real You Shows Up. What happens when the real you shows up? When the curtains fall and the mirage fades, the show is over, the lights dim. All they see is losses. Forget your wins. And that time may not come again. Do you still get up and pretend? Or drop the facade, take off your airs, and rejoin the ranks of your peers? You went far off course. If not for the stars, you'd be lost, chasing someone else's dream, or maybe scheme. But that's whose fault? Doesn't matter. All there is now is the effects. You went left trying to get right. It went wrong, and right back where you started is where you left off. From sought after to an afterthought. But don't fret, because that's when the real you shows up. What you tried to do, that's not even you. Now is the chance to stay true. The chance to switch to authentic and ditch that false image. Now is the time to refine and redefine how to speak your mind. To remind yourself why you started. Now that the shine has departed. Keep on through the trenches and shake those on the fences. You said it, so act like you meant it. You knew way too much to play along. Now it's back to your senses. I knew you'd own up. 'Cause now it's time for the real you to show up. Growth happens when the bad plan folds up. And attempts to run away from ourselves yield no luck. When you keep trying to spark, but the fuse refuses to blow up, that's when the real you shows up. Thank you.
All right. I know that's right. See, this is going back to kind of like what we were talking about earlier about this whole notion of self-reflection, about the real you,
Exactly.
about, a lot of times, we get pressed or we get into like some really serious situations or either situations that we don't like or didn't want to be in. That's whenever I'm like, depending on what you've experienced, because you always say, it's this difficult times is where you grow. Well, sometimes I have to say, you know what, I'm tired of growing. Like, okay, I get what doesn't kill you make you strong and all that. Okay, I think I'm strong enough now. I don't want to have to go through nothing else. But you're absolutely right in terms of when you're pressed like that. I mean, it's like that whole notion of like the diamonds and good wine and all that comes from pressure. Mm-hmm. And so, like you said, that's when the real you comes out is whenever you're in these situations. So yes, absolutely. Again, we got a few more minutes. So if you have another one you want to share, feel free.
Okay. Let's see if I got another quick one. Let me see. Okay, I'll read. This one is from Quiet with a Loud Mind.
All right. I love play on words, by the way.
Yeah.
Quiet with a loud mind. I love play on words. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So this one is titled "The Devil Don't Need No Advocates." So you're feeling clever, huh? Like you just want to make arguments in defense of what should not be defended, to justify itchy trigger fingers and bias. Well, I'm here to tell you, stuff it. The system does not need your help, buddy. Your precious brain power in service of running interference against righteous outrage only serves to make you look boorish and confirms that you couldn't read a rune save your life. When you justify the shedding of blood, the living hear you. Say less. You're showing that you're not knowing what you're talking about. You know, that evil doesn't need your help. Offering the polish the devil's horns will not spare you from the pitchfork. Thank you.
Wait, now, see, we're down to our last couple of minutes, and I won't go political on it. I don't want to say nothing that's going to get me in trouble, but now that last one, a lot of folks need to understand that point you made about saving from the pitchfork. Mm-hmm. Don't you think for 1 second that you're not going to get caught up in the mess too. So, and I'll just leave it at that. Folks can read between the lines. They know what I'm talking about. But yes, absolutely. A lot of times we get in these situations and we think we supporting somebody and, whatever their wrath is not going to impact us. When the truth of the matter is, you're going to be impacted just like everybody else. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, you're right. The devil does not need any advocates. He's doing well enough on his own. He is doing fine by himself. So, man, all right, this is what we do for the last couple of minutes. What I do is I give you an opportunity to promote. I shut the microphone off, and you run it for as long as you want for the next 3 to 5 minutes or so, 2 or 3 minutes, whatever it is, to let folks know anything about in terms of how to get in touch with you, websites, book signings, spoken word events, anything, shout outs. The only thing you cannot say is a dollar amount. I'm still chuckling at that. Don't think that pitchfork not going to get you too. But in any event, anything that you want to promote with the exception of a dollar amount, feel free to do that. And I'm going to shut the mic off and you are on.
Okay. All right. So, thank you. It's been a pleasure on being on your show, Marc Medley, today. It really has. So for those who are listening who want to get in touch with me, first off, you can reach me I have two websites. The aforementioned politeonsociety.com. It's www.politeonsociety.com. So that's where you'll see my blogs and my writings and a few other things as well. And I also have my official author's website at markpolite.com. That's www.markpolite.com. And then if you need, my contact information is there. You can click the button to get my contact information. And now, if you're on social media, you can reach me at Marc Polite. And I'm on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and I also am findable. I just joined Blue Sky, so I'm on there as well. I'm relatively new. I just joined like a few weeks ago, but I'm just kind of getting the hang of it. So you can reach me there. Now, in terms of what I have coming up, the year's kind of wound down. Of course, obviously, I don't have any book events for the rest of this year. So I have like a something coming up for Black History Month. I have an event that's going to be in Jersey City in February. I'll share more information on my official author's site when I get the information. When details are confirmed. And I will be at an open mic at the Community Paul Library in January. But for now, that's all I have come up. Just open mic in January, and then an event in February. But as details come out with the February event, I'll share them. But that's what I have right now. No book events for the time being. Like most of those don't start until the spring, honestly. So, but that's what I've got coming up. And that's for the time being. But again, I'm grateful for the time, and I'm hoping that you'll if you're inspired by what I said today, you'll follow me on social media or reach out to me through my contact page on my official author's website.
Well, I'll tell you what, one thing, because we were laughing and teasing about the name, but one thing, it is, as far as a promotional name or a stage name, it is easy to remember. And so it's like, because people used to ask me, they were like, because I play the piano, I play the keyboard. So they were like, is that your real name or is that a stage name? I said, no, that's my real name. That's my birth name. And so it's like, it's kind of like the same with you in terms of as far as finding you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this one's real easy to remember. Marc Polite. And it's spelled just like the word being nice, being good, being kind. Polite. Now, you said something there. Now, there's a platform you mentioned that I didn't know. You said Blue Sky?
Yeah, Blue Sky.
I don't know anything about that. What kind of platform is that?
Yeah, it's like, okay, it's an alternative to Twitter.
Oh, okay, all right, okay. I'm gonna have to look that up then. Okay, Blue Sky.
That's what I can say. That's what I can say without getting political. It's
no. That message received, and I'm glad you shared because since everything has gone down the way it's gone down, as a matter of fact, I didn't even like it when he changed the name to X. I was like, what? I was good with Twitter.
Sorry. Yeah, I will never call that site X.
And there you go. So that's why, like, if there's alternatives out there, because after everything went down the way it went down, my use and posting to X or Twitter dropped to almost zilch. I mean, it's rare that I'm on there now. It really is. I may even wind up deleting my accounts. I don't know. But I didn't realize that that's an alternative. So Blue Sky, I'll have to look that up. So you taught me something there this morning. I say, folks ought to learn something new every day. That's one of my things new I'm learning today. Because people, you know what, people think whenever you say something like that, that it has to be like mountainous. It has to be something extremely big, gigantic. But no, learn something new every day. I don't care how tiny it is. So for me, I just learned something new today with blue sky.
Okay.
All right, Marc, man, it was good to have you on the show. I was glad to meet you. We talked a real little bit when we were at the book fair, but I'm glad we connected and you had the opportunity to come on the show. And I do record them, all the equipment, as long as everything is working the way it ought to work. I should be able to get it up on YouTube, and I will make sure you get a copy of all the links.
Okay, great.
All right. All right, man, that's about it for us this morning. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday.
Okay, all right.
All right. Take care now.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Okay. Well, that is another episode of The Reading Circle with Marc Medley. And my guest this morning